You wake up burning, not bleeding, not broken, sick. And in the world you were born into, 40,000 years ago, before there's even a clean word for it. That is far more dangerous than any wound, because a wound stays where it is. Sickness travels. You can't stand. You can't hunt. You're dead weight to 30 people who need every pair of hands just to survive the week. And there's a worse problem underneath that one. The problem nobody crouched around you will say out loud. Whatever is inside you might already be reaching for them. The person kneeling to hold water to your cracked lips is gambling their life to do it. In a band this small, one fever can empty a whole camp by the next moon. So there's a cold arithmetic sitting in that circle, and every other animal on Earth has already solved it. The herd moves on. The sick one is left behind to the cold and the dark and whatever comes in the night. It isn't cruelty. It's math. The single safest thing your group can do, for everyone still standing, is walk away from you right now and not look back. And yet, grave after grave, cave after cave, the bones keep saying the same impossible thing. They didn't walk away. So here's the question that should actually keep you up tonight. Not how ancient people cured the sick. They mostly couldn't. And we'll get to how little they could do, up to and including the day it meant cutting a hole into a living person's skull. The real question is why they kept caring for the people who might kill them for it. Why they paid over and over a price that made no survival sense at all. And the answer is stranger and darker than they were just kind. Because this morning you felt a scratch in your throat, opened a drawer, swallowed a small white pill, and got on with your day without a single thought. You are standing at the very end of this story. Let's go find the beginning of it. Start with the helpless ones. In cave sites scattered across Europe and the Near East, we keep pulling out skeletons of people who were sick enough that they should not have lasted a single season alone. Wasted by illness, worn down by infection, too weak to forage or even feed themselves, who lived on anyway. Not for days, for years. And that does not happen by accident. Someone carried food to a mouth that gave nothing back in return, and carried it toward a body that might be catching. Picture that. Feeding a person who can't hunt, can't gather, can't repay you every single day for as long as it takes a child to grow up, and leaning in close to whatever is wrong with them every single time. In a world that counts every calorie against the winter, that isn't habit. That's a choice, made again each morning at real risk to the one making it. Somebody chose them anyway. Then it gets specific and strange. At a site called El Sidrón in Spain, there's a Neanderthal who died around 49,000 years ago with a dental abscess rotting through his jaw and a parasite twisting his gut. And caught in the hardened plaque on his teeth, researchers found what he'd been chewing to get through it: poplar. Poplar bark carries salicylic acid, the active ingredient in aspirin. Alongside it, traces of a mold that produces a natural antibiotic. 49,000 years before anyone had the faintest idea what a germ was, a sick man was dosing himself with painkiller and mold, because somehow someone before him had learned that it helped. And this is the part that lands. They didn't stumble on it once and forget it. They learned it, kept it, passed it down. A recipe for the sick, 49,000 years old, carried in the mouths of the very people we're taught to picture as knuckle-dragging brutes. And then there's the one that should stop you cold. All over the ancient world, Europe, the Near East, South America, we find skulls with holes cut into them. Not cracked, cut. Deliberately, patiently, with stone tools, into the heads of living people. It's called trepanation, and it sounds like a nightmare. But look closely at the edge of the bone, and you'll see the thing that changes everything. It's smooth, rounded, healed, which means the person on that ground did not die there. They got up. And here is the number that should not be possible. Most of them survived. At many sites more than half, and at some the great majority, living on for years, sometimes decades, with a small window of daylight in their skull. Someone opened a human head to let the sickness out, and then stayed beside that person through the worst weeks of their life while the bone slowly closed. Thousands of years ago, humans were performing surgery, real surgery, with a survival rate. And it worked often enough that they kept doing it, on purpose, generation after generation. Now, the easy thing to say here is, look how clever they were. But that's not quite what the bones are telling us. And the truth underneath is better than clever. Because most of this didn't really work. Not the way we'd want it to. The bark dulled the pain. It didn't kill the infection. The scrap of mold was a whisper of an antibiotic, not a cure. The hole in the skull didn't fix whatever was screaming inside it. What these skeletons actually record isn't medicine that worked, it's care that continued when it didn't. And this is the thing that should quietly rearrange how you see them. The caring came first, before it was effective, before anyone could have told you a single true reason it should help. For tens of thousands of years, humans paid a real, countable price. In food, in risk, in nights spent close to something that might be catching. To keep sick people alive, mostly without saving them. Compassion isn't the prize we won at the finish line of medicine. It's the seed the whole thing grew out of. And be honest with yourself here, because a healed bone can only tell you so much. It can't tell you whether that person was loved or merely tolerated, nursed with tenderness, or just not driven off. You can't always read affection out of a skeleton. But even the coldest version of the story still costs something. Somebody still stayed. The care is real, even when the tenderness can't be proven. Here's where it turns, though. Because that same instinct built something you may not want to look at straight on. To care for the sick in a world full of contagion, you can not only decide who to save. You are also, in the same breath, deciding who to keep away. The hand that carries water to a fevered child is the same hand that pushes the coughing stranger back from the fire. Compassion and quarantine are not opposites. They're the same reflex. The first act of medicine, and the first act of triage, the first cold judgment of who is worth the risk and who is not, were born in the very same moment, around the very same fire. We didn't just inherit the urge to heal. We inherited the urge to decide who gets healed. So this morning, when you opened that drawer and swallowed a pill without thinking, understand that the thoughtlessness is the prize. That small, ordinary, forgettable moment is the thing 50,000 years of people gambling their lives actually bought you. Not the chemistry, the willingness. Somewhere far back in the cold, someone held water to the lips of a person who might have killed them for it, and did not leave. Every single one of us is descended from the ones who stayed. So tell me down in the comments, if it were your camp, no cure, no hospital, no drawer to open, and someone you loved woke up burning and maybe contagious, how close would you get? Be honest, I read every single one. And if this is the kind of question that keeps you up at night, subscribe and stick around. And because almost nothing is stranger or more worth understanding than the animal you happen to be.